Okay, good morning all. What I'm going to do this morning is I want to, instead of doing a talk after the meeting and what we should have done after the meeting, let's look at a meeting before the actual races actually start. I'm going to do the Hawkesbury meeting, and just on this particular meeting, it's not a decent meeting, but the whole exercise for what I'm about to do is to show you my thought process when I go race by race and what I'm thinking. Obviously I'm well ahead of the markets, and a lot of my decisions are made based on the markets. But I also just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page and why I make the decisions that I make. And if we are betting on this meeting, all right, at this stage it's a 50-50 call, because look, this track itself, it's not a good track. It never has been and never will be. Like I said in my text, it's even on a good four, it's not decent. Like it's a favourites track, and there's always small fields, which is always another problem, and it's never ideal betting on these tracks with small fields. So, and again, if my runners are aligned with the corpse, I don't like it, and that's why I abort. That's the biggest reason why I abort. But let's just look at race one, okay? And, I've got the markets open here. We've got 1, 2, 3. We've got 4 picks. Now, really, what the markets are saying here is the 2 and the 7. Now, I've got the 7 on top, okay? And it's well on top. But I'm not sure if we're going to get priced. Now, as you can see here, $1.90, $1.90, there's just no value. And then the number 2, 2.30. I mean, this is when I say yawn, yawn, yawn. It's just boring for me. I'm not interested in these two runners. I'm interested in the 7 if we can get price. Okay, now the way I look at it is we've got to beat basically the 2. Okay, and that's the danger here. But also, I don't mind number 4, and I don't mind number 1. Okay, now again, you could see that we're looking at 130% markets. Now I did this race last night. Okay, some corps got 133%. You could see down here. I don't know if it's coming out, but yeah, you could see. So the percentages. So once obviously the percentages come down, then we look at it. But the way I see this race is if we can't get price on the 7, and they're back in this runner here, well then let's just say for argument's sake we want to take on the 7, because I think that $1.90, anything below 2.80 is a poor price. It's just simple as that. What I think the play should be here is maybe drop the 7, have a look to see what the sub runner is doing. Highly unlikely this sub runner is going to be hitting 337. It'd be highly unlikely. So we just drop the 1.73 units and just go with the 0.28 units, 0.23 units. I mean, these 3 runners are well rated, and don't let price scare you. It doesn't matter. I don't care. Like they're on the sheet for a reason, all right? Because they're well rated, and I think they can win the race. The runner that does bother me is number 8, but you see $13. I got it rated at $21. So just because it's $13, $14, that's still not a good price for me. So the play for this race, if we were betting, obviously if we get price for 7 and we get price on all the other runners, then play. If we don't get the price on the 7, have a small little bet on these runners here, on the 1, the 3, and the 4. I mean, what are we outlaying? We're outlaying not even 1 unit. And it's a big return if any of these get up. And this is what I call the usual suspects. The 2, everyone's going to be on the 2 and the 7, but everyone seems to forget about these other runners that can win. And that I always say this, avoid the usual suspects if you can. If they can be beaten, back horses that can beat them. And these sheets do find that. Okay, so we go to race 2. I'll try to make this as quick as possible, not to bore everybody. Okay, so what are my notes saying? 3, 4, 5, 8 are first starters. 5 was definitely the best of the trial runners. The issue, as always, is price. Okay, so look, I do every trial. All right. Now, when I make comment on most of them, it's because I do them, I clock them, and I dissect them all. Now, the 5 did trial well, but we're not taking it at $2.10. I wouldn't even take it at $4. Okay, this is the only time you're going to hear me having an opinion. I only have an opinion on trials because I do a lot of trials. So I and when I assess their prices, and also look, I say this a lot in my talks. I have stats to tell you backing these runners first up at those prices is toxic. It's so toxic, it's not funny. So I avoid them. I mean, for me to back that horse first up, I'd need $4. It can definitely run a race, but I wouldn't be taking that price. Now, we've got the 1, which is well rated. I'm not sure if we're going to hit that price. It's a 67% pot race. Now, we need to make price on the 1. That 1's the best rated horse in the field. All right, it's the one that's going to win. But again, I'm not overly fussed about it. I'm not overly keen about backing these type of runners. So, again, do not spread the units. Number 1 has a few lengths on these, and we don't want to take it on. So if we don't get priced for the 1, all right, follow the markets on what the 5's doing. If there's no sickness on the 5 and we don't get price on the 1, I would say just bin the race. All right, that's what I would be doing if I was sitting here. All right. So it's probably looking like a bin race unless this thing miraculously hits our price and the 5 gets really sick. I dare say there's something about this 5. Which, I mean, it's all based on rumour, but I'd be taking it on, but only if we can get price on the 1. If the 1 dips under our price, and obviously all our runners dip under, I don't like that 67% pot race. There's 3 or 4 other first starters. Probably bin the race at this stage. Okay, but it's all pending on what we can get for the 1. So race 3, we have a quick look at race 3. This is another small field. What have we got here? No, number 1 is a first starter who has had several trials, and recent trials decent enough to give this race a crack in this weak field. Now again, the 1, okay, it's a trial runner. It can go well. I did do the trial, but again, it all comes down to price. Okay, $7. I wasn't that overly impressed with it. But, again, I have been wrong many times with these runners. Okay, so, but I need to see way more for me to take runners first up. That's just a personal opinion because I do a lot of, like I said, do a lot of work on them. Now, number 2 is an emergency runner. All right, it's probably the horse to beat, but look, that's a poor price. So it might blow out, like as we saw yesterday in New South Wales in Sydney at Metro. There were some blowers at 1, but highly unlikely. So we go the 3, the 4, the 5 and the 8. At the moment, we could see that we're not far off them, and that's what I say, that they've aligned with me. So what we need to do in this race, we just need to monitor the 3, the 4, the 5 and the 8, because I think the 2 can be beaten. All right, certainly can be beaten, especially at that price. So when we look at this race, we've got to look at, okay, who do we have to beat here? Well, in my opinion, we only have to beat the 2. Okay. Possibly the 1, the 7 I don't rate. I don't know why it's that price. So it's probably looking like a decent race, but we need to make sure that we get prices on all these runners here. Now, if this 2 does blow out, all right, if it does blow out to, it will be highly unlikely. If we can, and then some of these other runners are not matched, add it, but make sure that you get pot. Okay, you got to make sure that you get pot. There's no point dropping a runner and then putting this thing in and you're not getting pot. Now, nothing below 60%. Now, if one of these runners doesn't hit price and that thing does hit 330 or 340, all right, and the pot is above 60%, have a bet. That's how I would be approaching this emergency runner. But this is probably, going to be an okay race if we can obviously beat the 2 if it doesn't get price, and obviously the 1. And the 7. I only see pretty much one danger in the race, in my opinion, and that's number 2. Okay, that's the big one that I'm worried about. The 7, I'm not fussed about at all. All right, if it wins, it wins. The 1, nor am I fussed about the 1. It's a trial runner. Okay, so race 4. I've left this race on, and again, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We're already well under pot, which is a red light for me straight away. We've dropped number 7. Okay, and what are we on? We're on the 8 and the 9. I don't think we're going to get prices on this race. If these things are well overpriced, now when you see that 48%, you think automatically pass race. Indeed it is. But there are occasions when if this thing gets well above 355, let's say this thing hits 450, let's say this thing hits 560, or, I've got it rated at 5, this thing hits 650, okay? Put the calculation in. If it's above 60%, have a bet. All right, but because all we have to do in this race, in my opinion, all we have to do is just beat this 7. So unfortunately, my prices are well above theirs, okay, and that's why that pot's so low. But have a look at the race itself. Go race by race. Use your calculator, because it might hit. What we are banking on is these things to actually blow out. We don't want them to come in. Obviously, if these stay the way they are, well, then it's a no bet race. It's an automatic pass. Okay. We go to race 5. Okay, this might be a decent betting race. We've got a 75% pot race. Okay, we've got the 1, we've got the 2, the 4, and the 7, and the 8's obviously the sub runner. Now in this race here, okay, all we have to really beat is the 5, and I think we can beat the 5. Okay, it's could be a sub runner, but again, I don't see why it's even remotely $1.90. This is what I'm going through in my head. I'm going, well, this thing's $1.90. I don't think so. Now you can see here that the markets are pretty much in line with me. 488, it's 420. What we do in this instance, okay, so let's just say this thing sits at 440, 420. Okay, you drop its price by a little bit, adjust it, back it like it's 440. I mean, we're hoping that it's well over minimum rated price. We're hoping that this thing hits $5. Okay, we've got a fairly decent sized pot to play with. All right, we got the 7 and the 8. The 4, which is, I've got it well rated, and I think it could win this runner. And we've also got the 7. All right, so if we can maintain prices on all of them, then we have a bet. Now the 8, it's a hope, but only add the 8 if this is well under price. When I say well under, okay, we've got it rated at 488. You're probably looking at about $4 is the minimum that I would drop it at. Tops, that's it. Don't go below $4. And if that gets below $4, then you add the 8. Simple. Okay? That's the play here. We've got to look at what the 1's doing, and they're the runners that we need to look at sharply. It's our runners that are on top that we need to look at. So when a decision is made when to bet and when not to bet, have a look what our top runners are doing. Now, if there's massive support for the 1 and there's massive support for the 5, well, then it could be a race where we go, do we really want to be taking on the 1? Because I rate the 1. I think the 1 is the runner to beat. But let's say this thing dips below, 330, and there's big support for this, and this thing starts to drift out to 230, 240. That's a red light for me. If this thing starts drifting, let's say this thing goes from $1.85 to 220, 230 across the board, and this thing's dipped to 350, abort. Just pass. Because they're still wanting this number 5. That's the trick, okay? They're just trying to get more money out of this 5. They're trying to suck you in with these other runners. Like, let's just say they back this into $7.50. Or, you'll go, oh, well, it's hit price. Doesn't matter. Watch what this is doing. This is the critical runner that you need to watch, okay? And then watch what the other runners around her are doing. If this thing blows out to $3.50, $4, well, it's okay. All right, but as we saw yesterday, they could blow out to 350 and still win. But if this thing still hovers around the price and this thing gets backed in and they back this thing in, pass. All right, we need to see if this thing's not on. We need to see this thing dropping further. If I saw number 5 going from $1.90 to $1.65, I actually love that. That's what I want to see. And a little bit goes out to this one. That's fine. We have a bet. All right, so we quickly go to race 6. Okay, where are we at? What am I saying here? Race is by far the hardest race in the card. Drop 2, 3, 5. All 3 are just poor prices. All 3 can definitely win, but there are prices a week we need well over $5.50. All 3. Okay, so this is a good race where you go 147%, 47% pot. Oh, this could be a good, decent. It could be, but look who we're taking on. The 2, the 3, and the 5. I think I've got the 5 as a sub runner. I need what. So we're now taking on 3 runners. Let's just say the 5 is not included, because a sub runner is not a horse. It's just in case it does blow out to our price, or there's a late scratching, or there's a horse that we need to drop. Now we've got the 1, the 4, the 6, and the 8. Now I've gone wide on a lot of these runners. These are the type of races that we can win, but we're also playing with fire, taking on 3 runners. All right. That's why that pot's 47% pot. we're taking on 3 runners that are that actually are well rated, but I have them priced way higher. Okay, the algorithm has said no, these things should be over 550. All right, they say it's obviously detected something in their runs that's saying no, it's toxic at those prices. Get rid of them. That doesn't mean that we're right and they're wrong. It means that just be careful here. Now, when I'm looking at this race, and I'm like, what makes me want to pass on this race? All right, if this thing stinks right out, if this thing gets a real big blow, and then I look at the 2 and the 3, and I say, what are you doing? If I'm watching these 2 runners here, and I see across the board that they're not getting back, they're just staying rock solid, and this thing is staying rock solid, then I start to worry. I need to see activity with these 2 runners to make the call about whether this is a race. And then when I see my own runners, I'm not interested in what my runners are doing. I'm only interested in what my runners are doing if they're getting heavy support. And these are just getting small drifts. Are they sucking me in to try to entice me to back this runner? What are my other runners doing? What's the 8 doing? Why is this 8 gone from 14 into 8s, and then this thing's still sitting at 350? So sometimes I make the call and say, you know what, I don't like what I'm doing here. It's a hard race. Let it go. But for this exercise, we're having a bet, but just follow what the 2 and the 3 and especially the 5 are doing. If there's massive activity going on with these 3 runners, then it might be an abort. So let's say this thing blows out to 13-1 and this thing blows out to 25-1. All right, maybe half stake it. If you're not sure, just go, you know what, I'm going to half stake on all our runners. All right, it's a good betting race. All right, we're not outlaying that much money to get, like we're outlaying 2 units, and the pot return is 140. But again, we have to beat these markets on top. And again, they could be on the sheet, but they don't interest me because I can beat them. Hence why they're not on the sheet. We go to the race 7. Where we at? We got this is a nice betting race. Okay, these runners on top dropped the 1 and the 3, but made the 1 the sub runner. Now again, you can see here that obviously we got the 1, we got the 4, the 7, the 8, and the 9. Now what I do with this type of race, I go, right, who do we need to? Obviously we need to beat the 1. Okay, we need to beat the 3 and the 1. That's the only 2 dangers. Now what you guys don't have you don't see what I'm seeing. And then what I'm seeing is, can we beat them? Absolutely, we can beat them. The 1 did rate well, all right, but we need well over that 350. I don't see how it's 260. I think it's poorly priced, so we're taking it on, and we're also taking the 3. So this is a decent betting race. All right. When I looked at the math on this race, I thought this is a good race to take on. Now, number 6 is actually a worry for me. We've actually got this thing two times in the last few weeks, but it's a nice betting race. If we can, when we see a horse at, let's say we got this thing rated at 615, except 550, that's fine. All right. Now, you don't want to be when I got a horse rated at 615, all right, I like to say to myself, okay, what's the least I'm going to take for it? Well, I get the calculator out. I go, well, I might take $5 for you. But then you start dipping below $5, $4.80, $4.50, drop it. Because then you get yourself into a bad habit of going, oh, well, I've got a high pot. I can drop it to $3.50. No, don't ever do that. Except if this thing's rated at $6.15, you don't want to be taking less than $1 for it off its price. So $5, $5.15 is acceptable. Anything below that, because all you're doing then is you're getting jammed into backing them to what price they give you. These prices are set for a reason. Don't ever let the bookie bend you over. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because that's what they do. We tell them what price we're taking. They're not telling us. Okay, we're going to tell them what price we're taking, and we want $6.15. Okay, and if there's $5.50, $5.15. We'll take that. Anything below that, just drop it. You don't need it. You don't want to be taking low prices. It's more out of, don't get into a bad habit of just accepting prices. Okay? You need to maintain high pots. You don't want to be taking, the lower you keep dropping that, the lower that pot goes. So you're obviously outlaying more to get less back. And that doesn't make sense for me. Despite the fact that it's 145% pot, we still have to beat 2 runners here. All right? Now let's just say, for argument's sake, this number 7 hits 450. Drop it, and this thing hits 345, 350. Add it. That's what you do here. You take the units off that, you spread them on all the other runners. All right, this thing might blow out to a reasonable price. At the moment, you'll see it and say, oh, well, you can't back. Yeah, you can't back it now, but look what percentages you're working. Once they bring down those percentages down to another 20%, which they will, or even 25%, they might be starting the brace at 115%. At the moment, you're talking it's 130%. So there's still 15% margin for us to be playing with. Okay. Then we quickly go to race 8, and again, it's the last race, and this is always the last race is the hardest race. We look at number 1. Look, it's the runner to beat. I can assure you of that. Okay, it doesn't have 7 lengths, as I said, but it's probably got about 4 or 5. I've got it rated at 279. Highly unlikely we'll get to that price. So this is my thought process here. Okay, we've got the 4, the 7, the 8, and the 9. All right, what do we do here? There's 2 options here. Okay, you can be a cat and not take it on and just pass on the race, and that might be the case later on in the day. I might see this thing and there is just no way it's losing. The markets will suggest to me this thing ain't losing, so you just pass on the race. Or you need to look for signs of sickness. Signs of sickness. What are the signs of sickness? It's hard to tell. Signs of sickness is what's Betfair doing. All right, I've also got the Betfair charts up as well. Now I look at it and I go, what's Betfair doing? What's the activity? Are they laying this thing? Is this thing sick? I don't know yet. I mean, at the moment we don't know if it's sick, but it might be sick come 3 hours before it jumps. We don't know. No one knows. Unless you're in the stables, you can't. What I try to do, I try to predict, is it sick? I look at the activities between all the bookmakers. What are these bastards doing? What are they actually doing amongst each other? Because these are the real traders. These are the guys that are actually floating money around. They're taking money off this. They're taking money off everywhere. All right. So at the moment, all right, it's looking like this could possibly be a pass race. Or you just drop the 1 and you take it on. If you take it on, you're only outlaying 2 units. All right. That's it. That's all you're outlaying with a massive return to take it on. Now, if we start seeing, let's say this thing goes from $1.55 and it hits about 220, but it's across the board 220, I can tell you now it's back on, it's on. And that's where I might have bought and say, you know what, let's let it go. But if you start seeing big prices like this, it goes to $1.55 and it goes to like 280, and if there's inconsistencies across these lines, then there's something wrong with this runner. Okay? And then you'll know if it's sick or not. So the meeting itself, at this stage, I don't like it. And, I do send out a lot of these sheets and say, look, it's an early abort. The reason why it could be an abort, but for this exercise today, I just want to go race by race. And if people can just listen to what I'm saying and then try to practice it on the sheets, it's the best way to approach these sheets. It's race by race, put up dynamic odds up, check out what all these guys are doing, check out what Betfair's doing, and it's a good insight on how to tackle the sheets. Okay? Thanks, guys.